Hey, all right, so here we go, happiness talk part one. First, we want to identify what it is that we're talking about. And so we're not talking about the types of things that happen in our lives that just show up, that lift our mood. Those are good, those are cool. Who doesn't want wonderful stuff happening to them? But we aren't in control of that stuff. And, what we are in control of is the level of our mood that we can improve upon by strategically putting in effort. And there is just a ton of research that shows that the things that I'll be talking about work. And of course, going back to the first part where I talked about you got to know that you want it because it's an effort, and what could be worth the effort more than developing a happier life, I ask you. So what we're after is an understanding that whatever our baseline of happiness is today, we can start to learn about things that are, researched look, I go with the research because there's stuff out there. There's fluffy stuff. If you Google ways to make your life more happy, seeing things like, start your day with a smile, or see things on the positive light of life, or look, if we've been spending the last 20, 30, 50 years seeing things through a negative lens, reading something like that is always only going to give us a sense of failure, because we're not going to be able to do it because we've got neural pathways that have been created over the course of our whole lives that see the world through a negative lens. If you don't smile, hey, listen, smiling, that has value. There's, in fact, endorphins and different neurochemicals that are released when we smile. It's not that it's a bad idea, but not something that a person is likely to do on a regular basis until it starts to have an effect, or if it did have an effect, that it would you'd even recognize it, right? So, go into Google, go into, TED Talks are great, ways of developing happiness. For my recommendation, a couple books that I have read along the way worked really well. One is called The Happiness Advantage, and one is called The Happiness Hypothesis. And these are based on what is now known as positive psychology. Won't go too deep into it, but was the time where all the research that was done about psychology was about how to fix maladies. But then a while back, people started to examine, well, how do people thrive? How do they go from being to getting better and better still? And so positive psychology is a real field, and it really, really works. So, the Happiness Advantage, Happiness Hypothesis, loaded with science. So I'll just throw out some things. First of all, interesting thing to consider are these standard tropes about money can't buy you happiness, for example. Well, the research shows that that's not true. Now, here's how that works, is that from the point of poverty to the point of about $70,000 earned income, I don't know if that's household or what, but in any case, around $70,000, that incrementally, the more we make, the more our general demeanor, life improves, which makes complete sense, especially if you're trying to feed yourself or your kids or pay bills or whatever it happens to be, and now you don't have that stress in your life. Well, how is that not going to make you happier? Of course it is. At the point at which you've got your needs met, then at about $70,000 up into whatever huge amount. Look, I'm guessing, I don't know you, but there probably aren't a ton of millionaires, at least so far, subscribed to my channel. So the point being that money can make you happier, and there are also ways that it can make you happy. For example, spending it on other people is going to make you happier than spending it on yourself. Spending it on experiences is going to make you happier than spending it on things. Relationships really are a key factor in all of this. That the more close social relationships that a person has, the happier that they are. Volunteering has a huge effect on people's happiness. Things like locus of control. I'll tell you about locus of control and how that works. Is that we all have a sense of whether or not we have effect over those things in our lives. Not even that matter, just those things that are, the more they matter, they matter. But the internal locus of control means that a person feels as though they have control over the outcomes, mostly. I mean, none of us has 100% of internal or external. External locus of control means that the world is being done to us, and that's our expectation, is that, the world probably sucks to people that have external locus of control. Bad things are going to happen. People suck. Whatever. I have the good fortune of having personal experiences in so many areas regarding these kinds of things. I will use that experience to illustrate. So, as I was, coming up, certainly during adolescence, late adolescence, 20s, 30s, I was in a revolving door of, getting arrested for mostly petty things, but getting arrested for stuff, being hungover, being broke, being angry, being, the world was being done to me. I was convinced that the world was just a hostile, ugly place, and this is the way it was going to be, and that's that. Well, I discovered when I got sober and worked on myself that what came about was that I became happy and healthy and successful, and all kinds of good things happened because I put in the effort, and I switched from, I'd say probably a 80% external locus of control to now 80% internal locus of control, maybe even more. Now, it is true that there are things in the world that really, we do not have any control over, and we just then learn to accept these things as much as we're able. So then, having done the work of examining what is it that I believe is going to make me happy, I discovered that the idea of the struggle is a thing. This is part of humanity's being on the planet. Like, if you give somebody, we have this idea in this culture that the more we are just handed stuff and things are just rosy and hit the lottery, that the happier we're going to be. Well, research shows that that is not true. So what conclusion I came to is that the areas that I think will make pretty much everybody, certainly have made me happy, is improvement in the area of physical, mental, emotional, and if you're so inclined, spiritual well-being or improvement, right? As you put in effort, as I've put in effort towards improving in those specific areas, the examination of improvement over the years, boys, that is happiness. You know, that has made me a happier man. Now, again, a person like myself can just say, well, here's, you know, what is going to make you happy, but, you know, you don't perhaps have a whole lot of experience in pushing yourself forward to, you know, claim improvement in these areas. And so one thing that I would recommend that anybody consider doing, again, do your own research and everything, but something that I learned along the way is that setting intentions, as simple as it may sound, and it is pretty simple, but setting intentions about what it is that we want to do, it works. So the idea here is that the grandfather of every action is a thought. And if you want to go biblical, as you think, so shall you be. You know, this is not so much, you know, manifestation. Well, it is actually manifestation stuff, but it's not like to the degree some of you may have heard The Secret, which is not bad by any means. It's just that, you know, if you, you know, are trying to manifest a Rolls Royce, well, you know, God bless you, rock on. Again, research shows that stuff isn't what's going to make you happy. I like the saying, the best things in life aren't things. But back to the idea of setting intentions. So here it is. It's my suggestion, not because I came up with it, because people smarter than I'll ever be for millennia have known these things, that if we have an idea about what it is that we want to bring about in our lives, and we either give it plenty of thought and focused attention, or better still, verbalize these things, that it is much, much, much more likely to appear in our lives. So, you know, whatever strategy you may use, you know, I do a what I call a four-direction prayer that addresses each one of those four things as attached to one of the four cardinal directions, and then you know, that starts the centering process for me on the daily meditations. And then so for example, with the idea of physical well-being, well, to me that means eat right in the proper amounts, to exercise enough, whatever that happens to be at whatever stage of my life, to rest enough, to stretch enough, to not poison my body. So I want to avoid, you know, drugs, alcohol, those things that are not good for me, and lately to detoxify, because while the irony is I'm getting all kinds of toxins put into me to heal from the cancer, there will be a time soon enough that I will need to completely detoxify with the help of Gerson Protocol, my dear Deanna, and other ways of doing this, which is, well, frankly, not going to be an easy thing either, because I've been on palliative pain medications for quite some time, taken as prescribed, I might add. And so my intention, though, and I will, is to detoxify and figure some other way to manage my pain, because that's just what's being called for at the moment. Anyway, I went down a kind of self-congratulatory maybe statement of something that hasn't even happened yet, but blah, 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 blah. So setting intentions matters. So in the morning, I set my intentions. In the evening, I do the same kind of a prayer. However, what I do is I review how I did in those 4 areas. So what I'd recommend that you do is to examine as closely as you can, what does it mean for you? What do you need to do in order to improve in those 4 areas? And start putting it out there. And then the thing is that's really cool is it's not like all of a sudden you now have to struggle to get to the gym. Nope. What you do is you just keep doing the prayer or the statement or the intention setting, whatever you want to call it, and watch as you then decide one day it's a good idea that you go to the gym, that you just feel like it, that it changes your way of thinking over time. Okay, now if you need to force yourself into the gym, okay, that's fine, do that. It's not a bad thing, but we all know that it's much better to do something because we're motivated by our own desire to change than that there's some part of us that is forcing us to do something that we don't want to do. Okay, so squinting at the clock there, I see that I need to take a break, so I will be back in a flash.